Be bold. Be heard. Welcome to Unmute Your Mic with your host, Jessica Bell. The views, information, or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Unmute Your Mic.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unmute Your Mic. My name is Jessica Bell. I am your host from Kansas City, Missouri, as always. And thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time, welcome. If you are returning, thank you for being a part of the Unmute Your Mic family. Before we get started, please make sure to like, subscribe, and follow on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere that you can find a podcast. I'm so excited for this episode today. Tiffany, thank you so much for joining us. If you could just introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about you.
Good stuff. Well, I am Tiffany Rochelle. I am Coach T-Row. To all my clients, they know me as Coach T-Row. But the tag name that is universal for me is I am the people's cheerleader. So what I do is I am that individual that puts their hand in your back, and I encourage you to become the best, the biggest, and the best success that you can be. My primary target audience, however, are women. So it'll be like single moms, divorced moms, and like young mothers, I guess it will be considered to be. So those are my primary target areas because we kind of lose ourselves once we become mothers, especially if we became a mother at a young age, like I did. I was a mom. I got pregnant at 15. And so for me, I became a young mom, and that was my identity, was being a mom. I also was a wife at 15. So I became a wife, and I kind of lost sight of who I was. So for me, that's my primary target audience, is to make sure I target the women so that they don't lose themselves and they can authentically be who they are. Hence the name. Be you. I want you to authentically be you. Why be somebody else when you're so good at being yourself? So what I do is help you to rid the toxins from your hearts and to set goals that are true to you. So because out of this heart, that's where our mouth starts speaking. So that's what I do.
Well, you just say it like it's just so simple.
So simple. It's,
I just do this little thing,
Just a little bit of this. Little razzle for your dazzle. That's all it is.
Right. Wow. Well, first of all, when you said the people's cheerleader, I totally got that vibe from you. As soon as you started talking, like you just seem very just encouraging. You're bright, you're bubbly. So how did you get started in this line of passion? I'm not even want to say work, because I feel like this is something you have to be passionate about, even if you do, get an income from it. So how did you decide that this is the thing that you wanted to do?
Great question. Let's see. How do I start that? I kind of got thrown into it, so to speak. And here's why I mean that. I am a pastor's kid. So me growing up in church, I automatically had to work with people, and I had to be able to interact with individuals. Thanks be unto God, I love people anyway by nature. So, but it's something that I had to do. I was always a servant, and I've been a servant at heart. So being a pastor's kid, and then once I got married, I became a pastor's wife. So I'm still one of those church kids, so to speak, that I just can't let go of serving. So that was something that I kind of got ushered into, being a pastor's kid, and then becoming a first lady. In the process of doing that, it was something that was natural. It was something that I was supposed to do, but then it became second nature for me, and it's something that I enjoy doing. And after I got a divorce, when I didn't have to do it, so to speak, because this automatically, I guess, is like an unwritten rule that pastors' wives are supposed to be over the women's department. So it's like one of those situations where after I didn't have to do it by mandate or by role, it was something that I really realized, like, it was a different area, because this is a different vein that I was in, because now I'm no longer a pastor's wife. I no longer have to do the church work, which I still do, but I no longer had to do it. It became like, I actually did like that. But because I do it by nature, it's just natural to me. It was just like, wait a minute, something's missing. Oh, hold on. So I kind of picked it back up. It's something that I guess I've been doing now. My oldest son is 24. So I guess I say maybe for like God, I just felt old in that moment. Thanks a lot. I've been saying something like 10 years, but it's not really. I just thought about that because I've technically been doing this since my kids was born. God darn, and he's 24. And man, I just felt old. I gotta stop talking to me. I want to walk away.
I know, but that's a long time to be doing something. Don't want to make you sound old, but you got some experience in this. And so, I mean, you talked about so many things, some different dynamics, like going through a divorce and being a young mom. And these are all things that, you know, there are a lot of people who can relate to that or who have gone through that. So how did you kind of use those things to inspire you instead of break you?
Great. So sincerely, that is a part of my story. I had to be broken in order for me to become the individual that I am now. And it was those broken pieces, those different fragments that I had, that I figured it was one of two things was going to happen. And because I believe failure is not an option for me, it was one of two things. I lost myself because I was so broken. So fragments of me go all over the place, and I felt like I'd never be able to restore me and get me together. Or I take that uncomfortable moment and I'll go ahead and do the work so I can kind of like come back together again. Because ultimately, even though I wasn't those roles, one role never changed. I was always a mom. And there was another role that is always going to remain the same, as I'm always going to be a woman. So because of those two roles that will never change in my life, I had to pull it together. It was one of those little things. I'm not going to be a fragmented individual. I needed to come together, and it took some time, and I needed to make sure I secure. My daughter taught me a super great lesson, which was making sure that I had to take care of me first. How did my daughter teach me a lesson? I was 17 when I actually had her, and I breastfed all three of my kids. But in the process of that, breastfeeding her, I wasn't getting the proper nutrients for myself. And so here she is, she's nursing, I'm putting her on my breast, and I'm like, here, girl, like what? But it became like a pacifier, so to speak, to her. And so we end up having to go to the doctor's office, try to figure out what's going on. She just seems like she just can't get full. She's always, and her sound was, anytime she made that, I knew she was hungry. And so I'm like, she's not eating. I don't know what's going on. So we go to the doctor. Some doctor asked me a simple question. She was like, what are you eating? And I was like, I eat a little bit here and there. And she was like, no. So what did you eat today? So I'm kind of trying to, just a little bit here. And so she's like, what did you eat today? And after I gave her the rundown of me basically eating nothing today, she said, that's your problem. You're not feeding yourself. You can't get the proper nutrients that you need to give to your daughter, because I'm not doing what I needed to do to secure my own air, to make sure I was nourished so I can provide the nourishments for her. So once we had that conversation, it wasn't too much longer. I want to say just a few months, the light really came on, and I was just like, you know what? We're not working, which is their dad and I, we're not working. Everything is just starting to go chaotic. I need to pull me together. And it was at that point where I was like, Tiffany, you need to start taking care of yourself. You need to make sure that you're taken care of mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all the leads, all of them. They need to make sure that everything was taken care of so that I can be the effective mom that I'll never stop being to them guys. I needed to make sure I took care of me. So I kind of started using my trials in situations that started arising, and I was like, pull it together. And it was my stories. It's my traumas. It's my issues that kind of helped me to have real life testimonies and real life problem solving. So it's not just problems, it's problem solving. I'm able to help individuals with that, because you don't have to do life alone. Not as long as I'm here. If I know you, you're not doing life alone.
You brought up a really good point too. So I feel like so often as women, or just people in general, but specifically women, we want to be everything for everybody. And while we're not getting fed, you know, so it's just like, we're giving. And I love that you use the analogy or the story with you and your daughter, because I think that's like the perfect example of a mother, right? Like you're like, I want to give you everything that I have. And the doctor's like, but what do you have to give?
Well, what do you have?
Yeah, and it's like, and it could be with good intention, but if you don't have enough, just kind of like on the airplane, they're like, put the oxygen mask on you first, so that you can help your child. And so I love that, because I feel like so many people can find themselves in a similar situation where we're just like, I'm giving, and how come what I'm giving is not enough? And it's because you don't have anything.
You're empty.
You're empty. And so, as you're going through these things in your life, and you're realizing, okay, hey, I need to leave this relationship. I need to take care of myself. What did the taking care of yourself, what did that start to look like once you move past?
Good stuff. So we end up getting our divorce. We had one more kid after that. So we have three, there are 3 children that we have together. And after we separated with one another, of course, I'm just a church kid. So of course, my first thing to turn to is God. First thing to turn to is Jesus. Of course, because of who I am, of course, I know how to pray. Sure, I know how to turn over my plate. But in the process of all of that, I still needed stuff. Sure, that's great to pray. Sure, that's great to, take a moment to meditate, but you still got to put action on that. So me just praying wasn't enough. So it's just like, and that's when lights started clicking on, because I'm like, now how in the world, again, I apologize for doing the religion, but this is just me. But for me, it was, how in the world can I do all this praying? How in the world can I deprive myself of food? How in the world is it I'm just doing all this, but I still feel broken. I still feel hurt. What is happening here? Because for me, I'm thinking prayer changes things is what I heard. So why aren't things changing? Not really understanding that it was me praying and working on the different things that I'm saying. So if I say I don't want to have an attitude no more, well, what is the things that I'm going to do to change that attitude from me being like, what are you doing So then I end up having to learn breathing techniques. And then I end up going to some classes, and I end up going to school. And seriously, I got on me a good old therapist couch. So sincerely, that's something that was really groundbreaking for me, real life, that changed my total worldview of everything, is getting on somebody's couch and saying, I'm broken, I'm hurt, I don't know what to do. And it was when I really admitted that I didn't know what to do. It was when I put all my religious beliefs, all the dogmatic things that was going on in my head, and all the things that I've learned as a mom, that I just said, I have to put this to the side because I got to get me together. So once I had that it was an honest conversation that I had with my therapist. It wasn't one of those little things. I really don't want her to see me I don't want her to see me, but how am I going to get help if I'm still hiding? So there's absolutely no way that my growth can happen is if I'm hindering my growth by hiding what my truth is. So I had to open up and say, hey, this is what's going on. Found out how broken I really was. And then we had to take the steps. But it wasn't steps that I took all at once. It's taking a moment, learning to breathe. Kids start yelling at me and I'm ready to yell right back at them. Then I really realized I'm not yelling at you. I'm mad because your dad didn't pick you up. So because he didn't pick you up, now I'm frustrated and I need to go in there and get something to eat. But we got to go to basketball, and you got to go to t-ball, and you got to go to gymnastics, and I got to go to work because I got a second job. And you hear how I'm starting to lose voice. Everything started kind of like depleting. So, but once I talked to my therapist, we learned breathing techniques. And after we got through the breathing techniques, and then we're just learning how just to stop and pace yourself. Let's work on this first. And then after we mastered this, let's work on this. After we mastered that, we're working on that. So it was steps, and it was things that I was willing to do. So I had to change my behavior. Was it uncomfortable? Absolutely. Was it frustrating? Heck yeah. However, it was worth it. And this individual that you guys see now, and the individual that is appreciated and that's helping others, it's because I decided this uncomfortable growth that has to happen. So we can't do what we were doing before.
And you brought up so many good points. So the first thing you were talking about, no, it's good. But you were first talking about the religion, right? And so and I think that is such a big thing, because I come from a church background. I also have gone through a divorce. And so I found myself, similar to you, in a position where it was like, okay, God, there are all these things I want to change. And I just want to pray and pray and pray. Yeah. But then it was like, but I had to realize that that wasn't going to be my sole source of healing. That healing also had to come from me taking action, like you said, going to a therapist, really doing that work inside of myself to say, okay, like I got to get some of this junk out. And the junk is not only going to be able to come out on the altar at church, but it needs to be some self-work. And you can have a relationship with God and still say, I want to do self, I need a therapist. I need counseling. I need to journal or meditate or do yoga. I'm a strong believer that you can have all of those things. That's not one or the other. So I think that is a really good point to bring up, because so often people think, well, I'm a believer, and then that's where it ends. And so there's no like anything that happens. And I was like, that's the start. But that's the start. It's a lot. And so when you also brought up, when you were talking about how, after you went to therapy and you did all of this stuff, right, to kind of get you to who you are today, what was it that made you not just take the information and learn it yourself and then just keep it for you? What made you say, now I'm going to help other people? Because sometimes we get healing and we're like, okay, I'm healed. But every person who gets healed doesn't say, let me go and help other people do the same. So what made you do that?
I like the feeling that I felt. And because after, again, it's an uncomfortable situation to go through, to feel all those feelings. To be honest with, I'm a little bitter. I'm broken. I can't stand. I'm angry, and then at that point I was broke for real. I didn't have any money. How am I going to make ends meet? I'm a mom, and there's a lot of feelings that now I'm feeling like I'm a failure because my mom and my dad, they didn't stay together. And so now for me, I didn't want to repeat that cycle. So I'm like, oh man, but now I failed because the promise that I made to myself, I didn't. So all these emotions, I had to sit with those and I had to feel those. And it was uncomfortable, but it was worth it. And after I had that freeing feeling, I was like, I don't want nobody else to feel like this, because it hurt and I didn't like it. And it was really uncomfortable. And if I can possibly save somebody to help them through that before they get to that broken, dark place that I was in, I really want to help somebody there, because that's not a comfortable situation. And there's a lot of people, and I've encountered them, that they can't pull themselves out of that place, or they have become so comfortable because this is their second nature that they don't want to break free from it, because it's a security blanket for them. It's holding them hostage. It's making them sleep at night. If they don't have the turmoil around them, they're just comfortable with that. And so I want to help any and everybody that I possibly can. Of course, I can't help everybody, but I just don't want anybody to feel like that, because it hurt. And who wants it? It's not a good feeling to hold on to stuff here. If I keep holding on to things that's in here, my pigment starts to change, and I'm going to end up having some impressions in here because I'm holding on to stuff. And it wasn't until that I really realized, once you release these toxins from your spirit, once you start releasing these toxins from your heart and really just starting to free yourself, once you start to release that, it don't hurt as much because I'm holding on to it so hard. I start losing feeling and sensation in other places. Now I'm not able to love you as much as I should. Now I'm not able to trust you like I should. And these are different things. Just because I'm holding on to one particular situation, everybody else is affected by that. I never wanted anybody to feel that. So once I decided to let go of that, I was able to open up, and I was able to freely receive stuff. I was able to freely give for real. Not only was I receiving, I was able to give because I'm not holding on to that. And the problems of other people that they created for me, I don't hold on to it no more. And it's easier for me not to inflict pain from somebody else to somebody else. So if I can help save somebody, I want to help save somebody. And I don't want you to lose your identity in the process. So it felt good.
That's beautiful. And because I always like to point that out, because everybody doesn't do that. Like, there has to be something different inside of you that says, like, okay, because it's one thing to take on your healing, and it's a whole nother beast to be like, now I'm going to help these other people who maybe were in a similar situation as me. And so I always think that's so inspirational when people decide to do that, because you don't have to. You know,
it's a choice.
It's a complete choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I am coming to you and saying, hey, I am, you know, stuck, I have issues with identity, you know, whatever it is, what does that process look like with you becoming my coach?
Well, first, it starts off as, once you go to my website, I have some, I'll say, qualifying questions, because I am not right for everybody. There's certain things that I can kind of coach you to, and then there's certain things I may have to actually refer you to somebody else, because there are certain issues that are beyond my scope of me being able to help you. So I may have to work hand in hand with a therapist, or once we talk, are you really ready to do the work? That's going to be the great question that I'm asking you. And I do it just like this. So you ready for real? Are you really ready? Because this is a journey that you have to go on, and there's feelings and emotions that you have to go through. So once you answer the qualifying questions that's on my website, it kind of gives me a gauge as to if you're really ready. Then we'll have our conversation. And then once we have our conversation, you get a chance to tell me, like, are you just wanting this because coaches are the end fad? Are you wanting this because you're really ready for a change for real? It's your choice. I'm not going to make it for you. I will not force my will on anybody. Yes, I want you to be healed. Yes, I want you to be whole. Yes, I want you just to be this great, happy citizen that's walking around here. Sure. But if you're not ready, I'm not going to force it on you, because it's going to require you to do some stuff. So you go to my website. Once we do that, then we enroll in the class. And then we do some one-on-one. There's a few packages that I have, but we do some one-on-one, or we can just do, you may not be ready to take on a coach altogether. So you just may need to do just a session or a quick session or two with me. So then we have that option too. So I try to be as flexible as I can. I want to help. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that you offer different things. So it's not just like, I got to be your full-time coach and there's no other options. I think that's great. And I did kind of, before we kind of start wrapping up, which I don't know how time just goes so fast when I have this conversation. But how you talk a lot about identity, and I think identity is so important, because if you don't know who you are, how can you ever accomplish anything? And so there were some titles that you could have had put on you, such as, you know, being divorced, being a young mother, even being in a church or a pastor's wife, or all of these labels. How do you not wear these labels, let the definitions of these labels tell you what you can or you cannot be in your life?
You better come on, shoot, man. You better ask these questions, boo. Sincerely, I love my labels. I'm kind of a brand whore. Forgive me I'm kind of vulgar with my mouth, so I'm not your.
No, you're fine.
Not your traditional church girl like that. But I'm kind of a brand whore, so I kind of like my labels. But the labels that were, some of them that were put on me, rather it be a divorced mom, pastor's wife, former pastor's wife, whatever you want to call me, I wear those and I embrace them, because it kind of is my reminder of how I got to where I'm at. But one thing I had to do is I had to loose, I'm going to say, the garment of people's judgment. So I just refuse to allow how your worldview is of me to change my worldview of me. Because the minute that I lose sight of who I am and who I was called to be, then that's when I start allowing how you look at me and how you want me to be. That's a coat that I start wearing. That coat don't fit me. So I appreciate you giving me that. Hey, you're a former pastor's wife. You ain't supposed to be acting like that. Oh, you're a pastor's kid. You ain't supposed to act like that. Okay, so what is the definition of how you act? Because last I checked, we both were human. Last I checked, we both bleed. You know, the same color blood. We both shop at the same grocery stores. I'm down here in Florida, so it's one of those things. I shop at Publix, Walmart, Winn-Dixie, and Walmart. So, you know, a lot of us shop at the same places. But for me, it's one of those things where I just can't allow your worldview to usurp how I feel about me. I always have to realize, and once I became in contact with who I actually am, that I'm more than just a mom. I'm more than just a divorced woman. I'm more than a single woman. Once I realized I was more than that, and I appreciate who I actually am, and realize you can't just box me in as just a coach. You can't just box me in as a spiritual individual. I'm not just this business lady. I'm not just the cheerleader. There's so many different facets to me, and the fact that I embrace that and I don't allow no longer anybody else's worldview to change how I feel about me. It's just a mindset that you got to stay in. So.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's a great answer. That is good, because I just feel like, it can be hard. And if you don't, like you said, if you don't have that identity, if you're not confident in yourself, you can easily say, well, single mothers aren't supposed to have this, or people, like whatever the title is, or the label, which is just other people really putting their ideas onto you because maybe they weren't able to do it, or maybe they experienced somebody else who was not able to do it, and they're just projecting it onto you. So the fact that you can navigate and operate and kind of let those things roll off your back, or say, I am a single mother, but that doesn't define me. Or I am, it's not defining who you are. It's just things that you simply have not only gone through, but you've conquered and you overcome. And it doesn't always have to be so negative. So
that's just taking the negativity out of it. So I'm not having that negative vibe. Oh, you're a teenage mom. You got pregnant at 15? I did. Before, I felt bad about that because everybody will always say, oh, and it was it was really more so the facial expressions that really made me feel bad. It wasn't so much that, oh, you're a teenage mom, you got pregnant when you were 15. It wasn't so much that. It was, you're a teenage mom. Yeah. You got pregnant at 15. Man, you're pregnant again. You're 16. You're about to be 17. You're pregnant again. Man, oh my God, you're about to be divorced. All my major milestones I was 21 and I was finally divorced. So all my major milestones, I was kind of like married or pregnant or something to that degree. But I just stopped allowing the negativity of how people felt to affect me. I couldn't do that. So I became proud about it. Oh, you're a teenage mom? I sure am. Thank you. You know what? I get to grow up with my kids. I just took the negativity of it. It took some work to do, but I had to shift the worldview because I didn't want to be negative. You're upset that you was a teenage mom, but I was kind of upset to a degree too, because my world changed. But I can either be negative and get mad, or I can celebrate the fact that I got 3 beautiful kids, 25, well, come September, 25, 24, and 20. So I could celebrate that, or either I can be negative and then start looking at them a certain way because my life changed because I decided to have them. And I took them. So now I'm looking at them negatively because other people has inflicted that, oh, you're a teenage mom. No, change the worldview.
I love it. I love it. I thank you so much for this conversation. You are so inspirational. I love your personality, your joy. It comes through the camera. I feel like we're talking in the room together. So I thank you so much for just having this conversation with me, for sharing just a little bit of your story, being transparent, and also using the things you've learned to help other people and not just hoarding the information. I think that is great. And I think there are people who need to see people like you who have maybe gone through some things, who haven't had a perfect life, but you're happy, you're filled with joy, and you're doing what it is that God has called you to do. And I think that is real. So important, right?
It's real. I'm not putting this fake on. I'm not putting this face on. This is real. I feel this way, seriously. So.
And I love it. And could you just take 1 minute to talk to somebody who is listening? So maybe it's a person who is struggling with their identity. Maybe it's somebody who hears these labels, or they're a single mom and they think that puts a cap on who they could be. Could you take a minute to just inspire those people who are listening?
Absolutely. So, appreciating your identity and learning who you are super important. Just like we value and treasure those identification cards that the state gives us, or our driver's license card, those are like certain little things that identify to others who you are. But the minute that you identify who you are and what your purpose is, the minute that you're able to start forgiving yourself first and start forgiving others, that's when your worldview will start changing, and you'll be able to start to appreciate every breath that you're able to breathe in. But just because you may have gotten pregnant at an early age, you just lost your job, certain people were affected around you due to maybe COVID or certain bad situations, you don't have to be that particular situation. You can overcome, you can make it. That's not the end. It's just really the beginning, understanding that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you're definitely going to be able to get through it. And if you need that get through, feel free to holler at me, and I'm here to help you through life.
Thank you so much again. I have truly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for sharing, for being transparent. And I want to thank everybody for listening to another episode of Unmute Your Mic. If you go to our website, unmuteyourmic.org, there you can find more information about Coach T. Now, I'm calling her Coach T because we already have a conversation, and I feel like she's my coach. So now I'm Coach T. But once you go to unmuteyourmic.org, you will see more information about her. But I will also put all of the contact information. So if you feel like you want to reach out to her, if this is a service or something that she can help you with, please do. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere that you can find the podcast. Don't forget to be bold, be heard, and continue to unmute your mic. Thank you, Coach T.
You're welcome. Grace and peace, y'all.
Thank you for tuning in to Unmute Your Mic. Be sure to tune in next time when Jessica takes her mic off mute as she continues her journey to find stories that inspire and uplift our communities.